Yeah, hi. Once again, this is Glory Dawn 3 saying hello to everybody. I have this word that I just want to share today. It's taken from the book of Acts 28 from 5 to 6. I read Acts 28 from 5 to 6. And he said, and he shook off the beast into the fire, and it fell, and he felt no harm. And he shook off the beast into the fire, and he felt no harm. Howbeit they looked when he should have swollen or fallen down dead suddenly. But after they have looked a great while, and saw no harm come to him, they changed their minds and said that he was a god. This is taken from the book of Acts, chapter 28, verses 5 and 6. It says, Paul shook the viper off into the fire. Paul shook the viper off into the fire and suffered no ill effects. And Paul suffered no ill effects. The people expected him to swell up. The people around expected him to swell up or suddenly fall dead. They expected him to swell up or suddenly fall dead. But after waiting a long time, and seeing nothing unusual happen to him, they waited for a long time and seeing nothing unusual happen to him, they now changed their minds and said that Paul was a god. Okay? They said Paul in Acts chapter 28, 5 and 6, there was a viper that Paul shook off his hand, and there were onlookers looking. They expected him to fall down and die because the viper, kind of came on him. But the Bible said they waited for a long time expecting to see something happen to Paul. But nothing happened to Paul. Nothing. After waiting, the Bible record, after waiting for a long time, nothing happened to Paul. And then they now assume and they begin to say in their minds that Paul is a god, or Paul was a god. That was why nothing happened to Paul. Okay? And what am I trying to bring out here today? Okay? Viper normally go for warm places. They go for warm-blooded prey. Viper, what it means? Because it was a viper that Paul shook off into the fire. So what am I trying? Different people come with different scenarios to explain or to teach or to preach on this topic. But what pressed in my spirit, or what I received, was that Paul was on fire. That was why there was fire around Paul when that viper came. Okay? And when he came, because Paul was on fire, Paul was praying. Paul was a prayerful man. So when the viper came unexpectedly, Paul was able to shook off his hand, shook off the viper off his hand, and that viper fell inside the fire because there's already fire burning around Paul. Okay? Remember what I say here, that this viper normally go, they normally go for warm-blooded prey. They normally go for warm-blooded prey. I don't even know why he went to Paul. Maybe he wanted to try Paul, not knowing that Paul was on fire. So what am I trying to bring here? There are viper. Viper represent different types of people, with different nature. They are very treacherous people, false, deceitful, wicked nature. That's what this viper is represented. So there are times they will come upon your life. It depends how hot or warm you are. Okay? So this viper came unexpectedly on Paul, not knowing that Paul was on fire, not knowing that all the surroundings around Paul was on fire. That was why Paul was able to, while he was praying, he just shook off the viper. He didn't feel anything. There was no effect of this viper on him because he was already on fire. He was praying in fire. He was, speaking in tongues. Anything, his environment was too hot for the viper to stay. That was why he was able to shook off that viper into the fire. And there were onlookers. There will always be an onlookers in life. when something, or when they throw an arrow, or you understand me? Because it's like they are looking at that viper as if they thrown it, at Paul, and they were expecting something bad to happen to Paul. There are people that like that viper. There are people that this viper represent in nature. Okay, there are times they will be expecting what they're expecting something bad to happen, or when they throw arrow, or when they go, do some dirty things, or what I mean, go to their usual places, dark places. So when they come out, they expect to see something bad to happen to their victim, to their prey. And when they will wait, the Bible record here, they waited for long for Paul. Maybe they wanted to see if Paul was dead. They were waiting for too long. And when they didn't see anything, Paul didn't fall dead, because Paul was on fire. Paul was, speaking in tongues, praying, and when that viper came, so he was able to shook it off. So Paul wasn't his prey. Paul wasn't the kind of person that viper was supposed to come upon. So what am I talking today? I don't know who you are. Don't be a prey to the viper. The viper, they like where it's warm. You need to be on fire, just like Paul. Be ready and be on fire. Like I always say, let there be fire in your altar. There was fire in the altar of Paul. That was why when the viper came, he was able to shook it, and he fell inside the fire and get burnt. It didn't hurt Paul, rather it was hot. So there are people that carries that viper. Okay, remember what Jesus said? Jesus said that this generation is adulterous and they are kind of viper nature generation. So it's not a new thing that the viper came on Paul, and